I've got one that can see.
Pope Francis arrived in a wheelchair to take his place at the seat of honor at the Congress of Leaders of World and Traditional Religions, alongside the President of Kazakhstan. Among the first to greet the Pope was the Grand Imam of Al-Azhar, considered the highest authority for Sunni Islamic thought and a longtime ally of Pope Francis in combating religious extremism. The President of Kazakhstan opened the meeting with a speech on the state of religion around the world today. He spoke of the importance of putting spiritual content online and avoiding polarization. Pope Francis was the first of the religious leaders to speak, and he began by criticizing religious fanaticism, and before representatives of the Russian Patriarch of Moscow said that God is a God of peace, not of war.
Non giustifichiamo mai la violenza. Non permettiamo che il sacro venga strumentalizzato da ciò che è profano. Il sacro non sia puntello del potere e il potere non si puntelli di sacralità.
The Pope's presence at the conference was received with much respect, although there were some interesting reactions. Some of the participants took out their cameras to take pictures of him. Others showed him signs of great respect. The Russian Orthodox Church's foreign minister, Antonia Volokolamsk, stood before his arrival. Just 1 month ago, he came to Rome to meet with Pope Francis. This conference is held every 3 years in Kazakhstan. It was inspired by the World Day of Prayer for Peace, held in Assisi by Pope John Paul II in 2002.
More steps towards the one world religion have just taken place on September 14th and 15th, 2022, with Catholicism and Islam pretty much coming together and say, yeah, we worship the same God and we're brothers and sisters, just different paths to a different God. This is all falling under the umbrella of the uniting of the Abrahamic religions, Judaism, Islam, and Christianity, of course, but not the real Christianity. It's Catholicism that's being united under this one world religion. The big event that took place on September 14th and 15th was at the 7th Congress of Leaders of World and Traditional Religions, and it concluded on last Thursday. But before I get into that, I'll briefly just touch on and remind people of the Abrahamic family house being built in Abu Dhabi, where it's a religious center for Catholics, Muslims, and Jews to all come together and worship all through the Abrahamic religions there at this one thing. The reason this is important is because 2 Thessalonians 2:4 tells us that the Antichrist will demand the worship of himself and his image from everybody, and anyone who doesn't worship him, these people will die. Actually, they will become martyrs, because the only people who won't worship him will be true believers in Jesus Christ, which is not mentioned by Pope Francis at any of these big meetings. So let me read a little bit from this article about it. The world religions leaders today adopted the Human Fraternity document signed by His Eminence, the Grand Imam of Al-Azhar and Chairman of the Muslim Council of Elders, Dr. Ahmed Al-Taib, and His Holiness Pope Francis, their name, not mine, of the Catholic Church in Abu Dhabi in 2019. And this came during the 7th Congress of Leaders of World and Traditional Religions, which concluded on Thursday. Some highlights from the World Congress of Religions. We note that pluralism in terms of differences in skin color, gender, race, language, and culture are expressions of the wisdom of God in creation. Religious diversity is permitted by God, and therefore any coercion to a particular religion and religious doctrine is unacceptable. So, as you can tell, they're not saying here at these events that Jesus Christ is the Son of God, the Messiah, the only way to heaven, because that would contradict Islam and Judaism. So it's uniting. Everybody's giving up the truth here. They're all just coming together to get along, to give up the truth, which is that salvation is found through Jesus Christ alone. Back to the article, it says, we recognize the importance and value of the document of human fraternity for world peace and living together between the Holy See and Al-Azhar al-Sharif. And then they mention 2 different documents that were resolved and signed into place by the UN General Assembly, as well as the Makkah Declaration adopted in Mecca in 2019. And these call for peace, dialogue, mutual understanding, and mutual respect among believers. So it's really the uniting of all these religions under the fact that we need to coexist together. And yes, of course, we need to coexist together. But the problem here is that they're starting to aim it towards we serve the same God. We worship the same God. You know, these Abrahamic religions are just different expressions of God to different people, and that's an absolute lie. The Jewish people are stuck in the old covenant, not accepting the new covenant. Islam is clearly, the Quran was written 600 years after the Bible, and they're clearly ripped off stories Muhammad ripped off and manipulated to create his own religion in the same region from the same stories. I mean, Muhammad even demanded that the original manuscripts for the Quran be destroyed. Why would he demand that? Because to cover it up, obviously. So the one truth is found within the biblical text alone, within the Old and the New Covenant mixed together, the New Covenant, salvation through Jesus Christ alone. So really it was this document of human fraternity. It was signed by the Pope and this Grand Imam and adopted at the 7th Congress of Leaders of the World and Traditional Religions in Kazakhstan. It's the uniting of the world under a one world religion that the Antichrist will be the head of eventually. A glimpse of the 7th Congress of Leaders of World and Traditional Religion. Here's from Vatican News, and I was reading through this article and noticed something interesting, that Congress, the 7th Congress of Leaders of World and Traditional Religion, came to life in 2003 in the wake of the tragic September 11th attacks of the United States and following Pope John Paul II's second Spirit of Assisi meeting in 2002. So here's just another thing that came out of the September 11th attacks. Pretty interesting to note that. Worth noting about this interfaith meeting is that it took place within a pyramid. Kind of strange that that's their building of choice. Also, Pope Francis said that his goal for this meeting was peace and unity, of course, very similar to what we know in 1 Thessalonians 5:3. Peace and security is what they'll be saying, and then sudden destruction comes on them like labor pains on a pregnant woman, and they will not escape. And that's the whole point, really, of this whole meeting, really, and this whole uniting of these religions together. Not that we shouldn't get along, and not that we should be out killing each other or something, but the fact that they're trying to unite everybody under peace and security, that's exactly what the Bible says they'll be doing. Because it's dropping the truth that Jesus Christ is the way to salvation, which is the true love and peace that people need to come to realize, and just accepting everybody's false doctrines and false teachings for peace and safety, and that will cause sudden destruction. Pope Francis also said at this meeting that the best way to stop religious extremism is not through following the teachings of Jesus Christ, but actually through political democracy. So just enforcing the fact that what the Antichrist will have, which will be the one world government, one world religion. And again, Pope Francis does not mention the truth that salvation is found through Jesus Christ alone, but in fact says this, and this is from Vatican News on the article called Pope in Kazakhstan Religions Key to Building World Peace and Understanding, in reference to this meeting that took place. It says, in his speech to the Congress, the Pope began by addressing everyone as brothers and sisters in the name of the fraternity that unites us as children of the same heaven. He noted that before the mystery of the infinite that transcends and attracts us, the religions remind us that we are creatures, not omnipotent, journeying towards the same heavenly goal. I mean, out of his own mouth. I mean, the fact that people who are Catholics don't see that this guy's pushing for one world religion is insane. I mean, it's absolutely clear as day that this is what he's pushing for. We're all going to the same heavenly goal. That Muslims who actually have written on the Dome of the Rock building in Jerusalem actually says God has no son. And so they want to unite Catholicism with people who say God has no son, because it's clearly written, clear as day in the Bible, that you have to acknowledge Jesus as the Son of God in order to find salvation through him. Everything in the New Testament has to be believed 100% truth for you to find your salvation. That's the full truth is found within the Bible alone and within the New Covenant and the new teachings. And if you're giving up some of that to find peace and unity with other religions just to get along because you don't like disagreeing with people, you're in for big trouble. I mean, Revelation even says the cowardly are cast into hell. So don't be cowardly when it comes to the things of Jesus Christ and the truth of the Bible. Now, again, quickly worth noting, I'd have no problem if these people all came together and said, hey, we shouldn't kill each other and we shouldn't be warring with each other because that's not good. That makes sense. But when they're starting to say these things about we're all brothers and sisters pushing towards the same heavenly goal, And even though this was between Islam and Catholicism, it also noted from a Vatican source that Judaism was there as well as Buddhists. So we have this uniting of the one world religion that will come to fulfill the 2 Thessalonians 2:4, all people will worship the beast. Also worth noting is the Abraham Accords. Before Donald Trump's election, he declared the number one goal for his presidency would be to achieve peace between Israel and her Arab neighbors. After 3 years of determining diplomacy, President Trump surprised the world by announcing a peace agreement between Israel and the United Arab Emirates. A few days later, the country of Bahrain announced they would too establish peace with Israel. On September 15th, 2020, representatives from Israel, the United States, the United Arab Emirates, and Bahrain met in Washington, D.C. on the White House lawn. There they signed the Abraham Accords. Again, this unity, pushing towards this unity, which is interesting, and because of Daniel 9:27, it's prophesied in the Bible that a peace agreement will be signed between Israelis and Palestinians just 7 years before the Battle of Armageddon and the physical return of Jesus to the earth. The prophecy is found in Daniel 9:27, and it says, "And he shall confirm the covenant with many for 1 week. And in the midst of the week he shall cause the sacrifice and the oblation to cease, and for the overspreading of abominations he shall make it desolate, even until the consummation, and the determined shall be poured upon the desolate." This prophecy states that the Antichrist will confirm the Abrahamic covenant with many for 7 years. Remember, the covenant God made with Abraham declared Abraham's seed would dwell in the land of Israel. The Abraham Accords just signed by Bahrain and the United Arab Emirates acknowledge Israel has a right to exist in the land given to them by the Abrahamic covenant. So the question has to be asked, was the signing of the Abrahamic Accords and the confirmation of the covenant that marks the beginning of the final 7 years? Maybe interesting, worth noting and pointing out, but we will see, of course, as time goes on. Also worth noting that Jared Kushner had a big deal in getting that Abrahamic Accord signed. Really, what all this is setting the stage for the final Bible prophecies to be fulfilled. We don't know the timeline. We don't know these things. There's many interesting things that look like this could go on, like Pope Francis being the last pope, if the St. Malachi prophecy is true and real. But people are saying he may resign, and then another pope resigned before him. So if that happens, maybe those two are illegitimate popes and there's still 2 more to fill the 112. There's so many different things that could take place. Just like now when we look back at Bible prophecy in the Old Testament, it all makes sense now. But at the time, it was people thought this was going to happen and it didn't happen. People thought something else would happen and it didn't. The same with Jesus coming and then expecting the Messiah to be this war hero to free the Jewish people from the Romans, and it wasn't that at all. But Jesus tells us it's important to watch and to look for the signs of the times, just like the fig tree, and many things are happening that really look like this is beginning to take place, and these prophecies are coming to their fulfillment. So it's important to watch, but when these things if they don't pan out how we expect, or if they're beginning stages or seeds or whatever, then it's important to watch and to just see how these things pan out in the end. But clearly, all of these things moving towards this direction are moving towards the direction of the final days and the Antichrist coming and these final prophecies being fulfilled. Also, I know I've seen many people on my TikTok page saying that they're worried and they're scared and they're fearful. None of the pointing out of prophecy from me is ever meant to be fearful or to scare people. And to note is 2 Peter 3:13 through 14, which really came to me at the perfect time when I was really meditating on how to share this to people so they aren't scared. And then that just happened to be the verse I was reading that night from the Bible, proof of God in my book. And that's one of those little ways he speaks to you when you're seeking him. And it says, "Nevertheless, we, according to his promise, look for new heavens and a new earth, wherein dwelleth righteousness. Therefore, beloved, looking forward to these things, be diligent to be found by him in peace, without spot and blameless." So really that we look forward to the coming hope and Jesus Christ coming back. So we don't need to fear. We don't know the timeline. We don't know if this is the beginning of the 7 years or if it doesn't start for another 50 years. All we need to do is seek Jesus Christ, seek the truth. He calls us to watch for the signs, so it's good to watch for the signs and then live life righteously and according to his ways. Don't have fear. Be looking forward to the things, because what we have coming for eternity, billions and trillions of years, is beyond anything we can imagine and how great the glory will be. So there's no reason to fear. And if anybody here actually does go through some type of hard thing, such as martyrship or severe persecution, we're told that if we share in the sufferings of Christ for his name, the glory and the reward that we have will be tremendous in heaven. So everyone in heaven who is persecuted for Jesus or his name or the cause of Christ, they are not disappointed that they went through that, because the reward in heaven is beyond anything we can imagine. So no fear of the times that we're in. Just wanted to mention that for people here. But absolutely what we're seeing between Catholicism, Islam, and Judaism is a uniting to come together for peace and safety that will lead to one world religion, that will lead to the Antichrist standing up and saying, I'm God, you need to worship me. And people who don't believe in Jesus Christ, which is not the message that's being said at these Abrahamic unions, they're going to give in and receive the mark in their hand or their head or worship the image and the beast, and those people will not be saved. So it's important to be aware and awake to this fact. Salvation is found in Jesus Christ alone, and we are not to give up that absolute truth under any circumstance. That's the only way to salvation. Thanks for watching, and God bless.
So we're going to examine today whether we are watching from Jerusalem, from this bustling city, eternal city. A city that you're going to hear a lot of noises and sounds and action going on all behind me. It's a city that is not going to sleep. It's a city that is all about religion. Behind me is one of the most iconic Christian symbols for over 1 billion people. And it's the Church of the Holy Sepulchre for the Catholic and the Greek Orthodox, and then you've got the Church of the Redeemer for the Lutherans. There is nothing more religious than this. And yet, we're going to try and understand how in the world can such a clear instruction from God to worship Him in spirit and in truth can evolve into a religious activity that is not about God and that Jesus is not even part of. We're situated on the rooftops of the old city. And by the way, this is more or less the border between the Christian quarter, the Muslim quarter, and the Jewish quarter on the other side. Right over there in the east, it's the Al-Aqsa Mosque, and it's sitting right on the Temple Mount, right towering over the Western Wall, the holiest site in the world for the Jewish people. And of course, the Temple Mount today is held as the third holiest site in the world for the Muslims. So you're watching a holy site for Christians behind me, a holy site for Jewish over there, and right above it, a holy site for the Muslims. No doubt, a center of religions that is within 1 square mile. It is phenomenal how we are so talented in creating religions, and it's so hard for us to really worship God in the most simple way. In other words, it has to be something different. It has to be something out of the ordinary, something that the world has not seen before. And it's very interesting because we often look at the existing religions as probably candidates for that. But I am offering today a different perspective. I believe that there is an existing religion that is ready to be as a shell for something new that is being injected into it. And I'm talking about the Catholic Church. This is the only one that fits the bill of all the descriptions of the book of Revelation. The Catholics never ever looked at themselves the way we call them Roman Catholics. Catholicism did not start in Rome. It started in Constantinople, in what Istanbul is today. And the word Catholic means universal. It means it belongs to everyone. The Catholic Church today, and for the last at least 7-8 years, maybe more, we see an unbelievable concentrated effort with hundreds of millions of dollars that are being poured into it to reach out to every part of world population in order to bring them all under a new concept of the Catholic Church.
Now hold these up, and what do we now know about these Qurans? Amjad says there's nothing. Now Amjad, do all these Qurans agree with each other? No! Are there two Qurans that agree with each other? No! Is there even one Quran that agrees with the Quran we have here today? No! This is the Quran we use today. It's the same Quran. This is not the same Quran as these ones we have here today. Surah Ayah says, Yaksibuna. What's that mean? Yaksibuna. They lie. It means they lie. Okay? And over on this side, it says Yukazibuna. What does Yukazibuna? They accuse others of lies. 140. Here you have Takakune. Takaluna versus Yakaluna. So Takaluna versus Yakaluna.
They say, you say, and they say.
Okay, you say or they say. And the verse says, or do you say Abraham, Jacob, and his offspring were Jews? And over here in the waters it says, or do they say that Abraham, Jacob were Jews?
Come in here. Get him. Get him. I'm not going to go in there. Exactly. Down here and discuss. You won't be in the camera. You're showing up. Hang on. Ask them to come down on my level and discuss.
No, one of them is correct.
One is my book.
Which one is it? Which one is it?
All of them. All of them.
Which one?
All of them.
All of them. They're all of them today.
He can. He can.
Let's unpack. Let's unpack. I want the... Now, is that different? Are these different words? Do these have different meanings?
Excuse me, sir. Watch yourself, please.
Why are the Muslims always violent like this? Come on, Muslims, calm down. Calm down. Calm down. If you're going to be violent, just go. We'll call the police. We'll ask you to go.
I hope you've all just been watching what's been happening. We showed these 26 Qurans. You'll see the video. We were about ready to leave the corner when all these young Muslims came and surrounded us. They wanted these Qurans. They wanted to take them. They were trying, as you saw, trying to take them out of our bags. They were very upset because they want to know why we had these Qurans. We told them because we've been showing that they're all different. And they could not believe that, and they didn't want this evidence to leave the corner.
This is the public way.
Guys, these are not your Quran.
I'm the public. No way.
You can't touch it because this is property.
He's not allowed to the Quran Kareem and the liar on it.
They want to steal from
Just come to me now.
Some Muslims are trying he's not going to hold it away. He's a liar on it.
Shut down and stop it. I'm going to give you. Who cares? Who are you? Who are you? Why are you so...
I want to know why do you have so many Qurans in the bag?
Because every one of them is different. Every one of them is different.
Shut up, wet cunt.
They are different.
We have shown today 26 different Qurans, and you're upset. And you want to take these Qurans from us.
I don't want to take it. Have I said that? Have you seen me?
Goodbye. We've finished this. Hey! Don't touch it. Here we go. This is so typical.
You saw how we had to walk away. You saw how we had to protect the bag. You saw how they tried to even grab it out of the bag. Can you see why this destroys everything Islam stands for? Can you see why Muslims are so insecure? I thank God we don't have this problem with the Bible. It's going to be something that will continue. But then you'll understand for Muslims who have always been told their whole lives that the Quran is sacrosanct, it's eternal, it's been sent down, it has been unchanged, and every Quran is exactly the same all over the world. We showed that there were 26 different Qurans. They're in those bags. They wanted to get rid of them. They wanted to make sure that we did not continue with this because they don't know how to deal with it because it destroys everything they know. They don't have a relationship with God. All they have is that Quran and the man, the book of the man, the book of the man. That's all they have to go on. I can see why they're angry. I can see why they wanted to get rid of this from us. I can see why they were concerned that we were still going to use this. Because as long as we have this in our possession, we can now show the whole world the problem with this book, this Quran. God bless you.
Living below in this old sinful world, hardly a comfort can afford. Sing it with me. Striving alone to face temptation so. Won't you tell me where could I go but to the Lord?
Here's the story that Ron Wyatt told me before he died. I sat in his living room, talked to him for 3 hours about the Ark of the Covenant. He said, Brother Hovind, I found the Ark of the Covenant. I said, yeah, right. Okay, and I'm Methuselah. I'm still around. He said, no, Brother Hovind, I really did. I said, well, tell me about it, Ron. Now, Ron was a great guy. He was the kind of guy that if I was God, I would let him find all these things because he wasn't out for any glory. He's not bragging about it. He wasn't, not looking for money. Just wanted to, he's a humble servant of the Lord. He had a lot of Seventh-day Adventist teaching in him, which I would disagree with, some of the things they teach. He wasn't a Seventh-day Adventist, but he believed some of the things they believe, okay? He said, I was walking along the north side of Jerusalem and with an Israeli friend of mine, and we're walking along talking about things and what happened here, because Ron's been a student of Scripture for many, many years, okay, and knew it extremely well. He said, we're walking along, all of a sudden my left arm stuck out, and I pointed to this garbage dump. There's a pile of rubble, been there for hundreds of years, up against the side of this cliff. And there's a road along the bottom, there's a big cliff and another plateau on top. He said, my left arm stuck out, and my mouth started speaking. And my mouth said, that's Jeremiah's grotto. The Ark of the Covenant's down there.
I've got one that can see.